Now next is again very important concept, third component, that is external debt. Okay, external debt. And if you again talk about 2016, September 2016, external debt was around $483 billion, which was close to 23.4 exact value, close to 24% of GDP. Okay, so it was around 24% of GDP or external debt. Now, I've told you already what you mean by external debt, right? It is not only the debt of government, it is actually the debt of the country. Debt of the country means both private as well as government. The private borrowing will also be part of external debt. Okay, so it is the debt on entire country, not the debt on government. Debt on government is actually public debt. Okay, so here I'm talking about external debt. So private and public will be there. Out of this, what do you think the contribution, whose contribution will be more? In external debt, actually private contribution is more because of all these ECBs and all. So it is around 80% and public will be 20%. Okay, what are the sources of external debt? Sources, as we have already discussed, firstly external commercial borrowing, and then we have NRI deposits, and then multilateral borrowings. All these are multilateral borrowings. All these are actually sources of multilateral borrowing means IMF, World Bank, etc. All these are sources of external debt. And one interesting fact which I want to tell you is this external debt. So I'm just deviating and I'm talking about public debt. Public debt means debt on government. Public debt. This is debt on government. So this is debt on entire country. So from outside, debt on entire country from outside. Okay, so what do you think, which one will be more? Actually public debt is more. It is around 67% of GDP. The reason is the public debt involve the debt of government from domestic sources also, and that is very huge. Okay, so that will also be added, and external debt from government side will be added, not the private side. So that is why it is around 67% of GDP. That is around close to three times of external debt. Okay, so debt from India also is part of public debt, but when I'm talking about external debt, it is just the debt from outside. Okay, so in that government is having some 20% only. That 20% will also be part of this, obviously, but out of the 67, that 20% will come plus whatever the government is borrowing from India also will be a part of it. So I hope you understood the difference between external debt and public debt. External debt is the debt on entire country, private as well as government, and from outside only. Public debt means debt of government from outside as well as India. Okay, and this is 67%, close to three times. You need to have a rough idea about this. Now let's quickly talk about this ECB. We have already discussed about ECB. These are private borrowings. Okay, now in this, it can be short term, it can be long term. All these we have discussed. So short term is around 25% and long term is around 75%. I've already told you ECB is not too much desirable, maybe desirable to an extent, but after that it is actually going to create problem. Although it is giving you funds and money and development of infrastructure in all these way at the initial stage of developments, it is actually going to help you for a developing country like India. But the problem is, you need to pay back this with interest, and from where this interest is going? Interest is actually going from the current account. I have already demonstrated. I think I have shown that here. You can see here. You see here, when I talked about services, there are factor and non-factor. When you talked about factor inputs, land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, right? So in that I have already told you. Here you can see that for the capital you need to pay interest from here, and this is part of current account. So when you are paying interest for this external commercial borrowings or the foreign assistance, what is actually happening? You are paying it from the current account. So in long term, the current account deficit is actually increasing, and that is not desirable. Okay, so both are actually bad, but which one is worst? Short term is worst because you need to pay back immediately. Long term you may get some time, but even then there are problem because interest is paid from current account. You just need to have all these idea, and I'm making it very clear. There is no need to have any confusion. If you start reading the textbooks, it will take a lot of time for you to understand these concepts. Okay, now one more interesting fact which I want to give you here is international debt statistics, which was published by World Bank in 2017. International debt statistics 2017 by World Bank. You know what was India's position? India was the fifth largest debtor. Fifth largest debtor in the world was India. Okay, and they have given the classification severely indebted based on the vulnerability. Okay, moderately indebted, and less indebted. So these three classifications are given on the basis of vulnerability, and I've already told you India is the fifth largest debtor, so you can make an assumption, you can make a guess here where India will come, and that guess will be wrong because India is actually coming here in less indebted. The reason is debt and indebtedness is different. Okay, so I've already told you India is having $483 billion external debt. Now if you take Nepal, even if let's say $400 million is their debt, okay, so I would say Nepal is, see, obviously you can see if you talk about debtor, it is India who is the largest debtor here, there is no doubt in that. But if you talk about indebtedness, this is again relative. There's a relative concept. India is having capacity to repay this debt. We are a largest economy, one of the largest economy, and we are in a position to pay this, but Nepal may not be able to pay this. Okay, we are the third largest economy, as I have already told you. So Nepal may be more indebted in this case, and that is the reason why, although India is the fifth largest debtor of the world, but we are classified under the less indebted because we have that capability to repay the debt. And you know, in 1991 we are having 25 percentage 28.5 percentage of GDP as the external debt. Now it was reduced to 23.4 percentage, and that is actually a good sign only. One more concept which is related to this debt that I want to discuss is debt service ratio. So debt service ratio, what is this? In the numerator, payment of interest and principal on external debt. So you need to pay the interest and the principal divided by current account receipts, whatever you receive. Okay, current account receipts, and if you need to get it in percentage, you have to multiply by 100. And you know what is the value of India? It was 7.5. What do you mean by that? You need to spend 7.5 to pay interest and the principal on external debt out of every $100 that you're receiving. So 7.5 you need to spend out of every $100, and it is actually a very reasonable value, and that is why this debt service ratio is actually an indicator of indebtedness. Okay, so we don't want to spend too much. 7.5 percentage is actually a reasonable value. You know what was our debt service ratio in 1991? 1991 it was 36 percentage. What do you mean by that? Out of every $100 that you are getting, $36 you have to spend for paying the interest and the principal. So now the condition is much better. Now I'll give you a brief idea about the composition of capital flows. Okay, now and before. So composition of capital flows. Okay, so there are two types: non-debt capital, then the debt capital. Non-debt means that these are investments. It is coming as investment. Debt means the capital which is coming in terms of ECB loans, etc., foreign assistance, like that. Okay, so I'm talking about 1990s, and I'll be talking about now. Now means last 3-4 years. Okay, so 1990s it was 15% which was coming from non-debt category, that means as investment, and 85% was debt. Okay, now the trend changed. It is 70% non-debt, that means it is coming as investment, and 30% is the debt, that means in terms of loans and grants. So you can see the change in trend here. Before it was in terms of loans, which was very high, and investment was very low. Now after LPG, this is one of the most important impact of LPG, because you have a topic, effect of liberalization on Indian economy, in your UPSC mains in the third chapter, in the third paper. Okay, so this is one of the impact that this data you can remember, and you can obviously write this one. Anyway, I'm going to take that after this, towards the end of this, impact of liberalization of on Indian economy. Each and every topic from third chapter I'm covering here. Similarly, history also. Okay, so now what is the conclusion? The overall BOP situation is actually strong, but not very strong. But we have, what is the advantages of having a very strong BOP situation? Because if your external balance is strong, you can recover, or you can be resilient from any external shock, and that's the reason why we could recover from that 2008 global financial crisis. Okay, so now the question is, do you support liberalization? You obviously need to support liberalization, but you have to take into consideration the BOP situation. For any country at the developing stage, liberalization is actually good, because you get a lot of fund, infrastructure, investment, and all these things. But the problem is the vulnerability. It is coming with a huge risk. And if you can accommodate that risk, how can you accommodate the risk? If your balance of payment situation is very strong, you can absorb any external shock. So if your BOP situation is strong, go with liberalization. If your BOP situation is weak, you have to stay away from liberalization, because you can't absorb the external shock. So that has to be very clear. So instead, what you can do, you can go for promotion of Make in India and all those things, increase exports, increase investment, efficiency increase, productivity increase, and all those things can be done. Okay, so that's about indicators of BOP. Let's quickly now talk about Forex reserve. Okay, so Forex reserve. What are the components? You have mostly hard currencies. Hard currencies in terms of dollar, pound, yen, renminbi, etc. Okay, so dollar. Then you have gold. Okay, and then you have SDR and RTP. What do you mean by SDR? SDR is the special drawing rights, and RTP is the reserve trench position with IMF. Okay, so what is the proportion? Maximum you hold it in terms of hard currency, 94%, and this is around 5%, and this is the least one, that is around 1%. Okay, so that's about your the components of Forex. Now let's talk about change in Forex. So how Forex is actually changing, or how can you understand the change? So first one is obviously, as I have discussed, BOP effect. Okay, so if there is a change in hard currency because of change in quantity of hard currency, how this is actually happening, we have discussed it here. You can see here, overall balance is 18, so reserve changes minus 18. Minus 18 means inflow of $18 billion. So this is how hard currency is changing. So that lead to increase in Forex, so that lead to change in Forex. Second is, even if there is no increase or change in this way, there may be some valuation effect. So you need to know this. They can ask this as a prelims question. While valuation effect means it is actually happening because of the appreciation or depreciation of dollar against, not rupee, against other hard currency, because rupee is not part of your Forex. Okay, against other hard currencies which are part of Forex, like euro or pound, renminbi, and etc. Okay, other hard currencies. Now if you have any doubt, I'll explain this. For example, let's take, you have $1 and £1 in your Forex basket. Okay, so if you express this in terms of dollar, how much dollar is there in total as your Forex? You can see €1 is around $1.3, if let's suppose. So $1 and $1.3. €1 is $1.3. So effectively you can write it as $2.3 as your Forex. Now imagine a situation that dollar appreciated. So what will happen with €1 now? Dollar appreciated means $1.2 now. So €1 is actually equal to $1.2. Dollar appreciated. Now if you see, there is $1 and €1 means $1.2. So what will happen? $2.2. So that means your Forex is actually reduced. Even earlier also $1 and €1, now also $1 and €1. Why it is reduced? Because dollar appreciated against euro or pound. Okay, so this is what you mean by appreciation or now if it is depreciation, $1 if it became $1.4, then what happened? Your forex would have increased $2.4 from 2.3. It would have been 2.4. Here there is a decrease because dollar appreciated. If dollar depreciate, your forex will increase. Okay, so this is what you mean by valuation effect. So I hope this is clear for all of you, and I hope you also understood why other countries are not keeping rupee in their forex, right? Before, if you remember, in 2013-14 time, it was 45 rupee per dollar. Now it is around 67-70 rupee. So when rupee is depreciating or dollar is appreciating, you understood what is actually going to happen with their forex. So whatever they are doing is actually correct only. Okay, so I hope that is clear. Now let's also talk about the advantages of holding huge forex. So what are the advantages of holding huge forex? It will strengthen BOP. Secondly, it will increase resilience against any external shock. Increase resilience against external shocks. And you can invest this in foreign securities also, because if you invest, you may get some interest, and that interest can be used for some other purpose. So maybe invested in foreign securities. Okay, and you can use this to pay your external debt. If you can use that to pay your external debt, your interest burden will actually come down. So current account deficit can come down. So maybe used to repay external debt. So the interest burden will come down, current account deficit will reduce, and also may be used to import. Why you need import? If there is a problem or demand supply mismatch in the domestic items, you can import. In case of onion, you can import. If you have a huge forex, you can actually import so that you can tackle inflation. Import to reduce inflation. Okay, and you can also use this to import capital, infrastructure, etc. So you can use to import capital goods, infrastructure, etc. Okay, so you can't keep this forex idle. There is a huge opportunity cost involved in that, so you can do all these things. Now one more concept which I want to discuss is sovereign wealth fund. Sovereign wealth fund. Sovereign wealth fund means a part of your forex you can keep it aside, and this corpus, this is what you call as corpus, and this may be invested in the foreign securities. As I've discussed already, China is having a huge sovereign wealth fund, and they invest in almost all the US securities, and half of US external debt is basically connected to China. So let me write it down. So consist of part of forex reserve of a country, and its corpus is invested in foreign securities. Okay, so I hope this is clear for all of you.